Crime rates continue to climb in D.C., and council's about to take up legislation they say could help buck the trend. But what's at stake here? Let's bring in my guest tonight. He's D.C. Police Union Chair Gregg Pemberton, up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Thanks for coming in, Greg. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
So first of all, Council Chair Phil Mendelson, a couple of months ago, you were before Congress, he was before Congress. He had said there's no crime crisis in D.C., but then last week he told our colleague Stephanie Ramirez, quote, "You can get away with murder in D.C." What changed here?
Well, first of all, both of those things can't be true, right? You can't have no crime crisis and then also be able to commit murder with impunity. It's one of the more irresponsible things I've heard council members say, and that's a pretty high bar. But, you know, frankly, the fact is that if he really believes that you can commit murder and not be apprehended and not serve any penalty, it's his fault. It's because of the policies that he and the council, particularly Charles Allen, have championed over the past 3 years. Anti-police rhetoric, pro-criminal rhetoric, mountains of legislation that handcuff cops and prevent them from being able to do their job in professional, responsible ways. And so if you really can commit a murder without being caught in the District of Columbia, it's because of his policies.
We mentioned you went before Congress. It was part of the changes to the crime bill that the city had pushed through. Obviously, Congress had put a stop to that. The White House went along with that, so they put a stop to that. But now Councilmember Brooke Pinto is pushing some emergency legislation. And there's a few things on there, too lengthy to mention, but one, creating, quote, rebuttable presumption in favor of pretrial detention, making it a felony to fire a gun in D.C., allowing police pursuits when necessary, something that Mayor Bowser, who called Mendelson's comments asinine, but something that she seems to be in favor of. Zachary Parker, council members, in favor of it. Does this change? Would that help? Would these proposals make any changes?
Yes, they would. And frankly, it's refreshing to see that there's any movement back in the direction of sanity and common sense here. What we've seen for the past 3 years is just constant introductions and passage of bills that are anti-cop, anti-law enforcement, anti-criminal justice, pro-criminal, and to now see the City Council actually discussing, if at all, these bills that do go in the direction of holding criminals accountable, it is refreshing. My thought is it's a drop in the bucket. This is like turning around a battleship. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and frankly, until we start seeing some more drastic measures being taken place, I don't think we're going to see a lot of change in the crime numbers.
So for the time being, is this a bit-by-bit approach? Do you think you can do it incrementally to build up to something that might be actionable, that might make some dent? Because you mentioned the numbers. I want to pull them up real quickly so people can see them. These are from D.C. Police. There it is, 17% increase in homicide at this point in the year. Violent crimes up 33%. Motor vehicle theft up 117%. And look, I mean, in my neighborhood over the weekend, you know, right outside of a restaurant, you know, somebody comes out, pulls a gun and shoots somebody in the middle, where there are two restaurants nearby, packed with diners. I talked with one person inside one of them and said he's never been so scared. That said, I think, you know, a lot of people are seeing this firsthand for the first time, where there are incidents happening at a pace we haven't seen in a while.
That's absolutely right, and don't forget about armed carjackings, which are up almost 100%. We're now at 479 carjackings that have occurred this year alone. The violence is out of control. The crime generally is out of control, and it's skyrocketing over last year and the year prior, which were significant increases over the years before that. You know, something really major needs to be done here. I do think that these bills show some optimism that the council is actually starting to adopt some common sense proposals. I am a little bit pessimistic that some of the other council members are going to come in and try to water it down or vote against it. So we'll see tomorrow when some of these things get in front of the council. But they're really going to have to do way more than just this bill or the mayor's Safer, Stronger D.C. bill. Something
you've said in the past is the idea that you're certainly seeing fewer police officers, fewer people wanting to be police officers, fewer officers staying on the force. The city tried to offer a $20,000 signing bonus. Are things like that helping?
No, not at all. So right now we're in 2020, we were at just over 3,800 police officers. Right now, we're just over 3,300, which is a loss of about 500 police officers. The recruiting right now is abysmal. I mean, we're talking about single-digit numbers in terms of monthly recruit classes, which is unheard of. The city offered $20,000 hiring bonuses. It was not enough to move the needle. They changed it to $25,000. The needle still hasn't moved. It is just absolutely an unattractive place to work because of the provisions that the city council has put in place through the Policing and Justice Reform Act and other measures that they've taken, not to mention just the rhetoric that just demonizes cops every day. I mean, just like you mentioned, Phil Mendelson had a press conference this morning saying that he was blaming the low closure rates on the crime and said that if he had a badge, he could go out and maybe close these cases. That kind of rhetoric is not helpful to employees, whether they're current or potential future employees.
So for the people who have been advocating for a lot of these reforms, as they call them, these changes in policing, whether it comes to what they perceive as more accountability out there, is there any instance where they are right in any instance, or is this a matter of an approach where there's a lot of negativity on the end of that coming about?
Well, it's both. Police officers need to be held accountable. We sign up for this job. We know it's a great responsibility, and we understand that if there are mistakes that are made, that you're going to be held accountable. There's going to be consequences for that. And there should be people that investigate that and met out that discipline as necessary. The problem is that they've lumped accountability on top of accountability. There's 9 different entities that investigate cops in the city, and they all go around and do these investigations. They're very biased. They end up inevitably siding on the favor of the complainant or whoever's suggesting that there's misconduct, and then officers' careers are negatively impacted, and they've eliminated through a lot of these bills the due process and the collective bargaining rights for officers to stand up and have a say in those actions. And so it's just a very difficult place to work in that environment. Accountability is important. I think we have it. I think we should always strive to do better, but lowering the standards and creating an environment where less people are applying makes the situation more dangerous.
We're going to see what the council does when they meet tomorrow and see where it goes from there. Gregg Pemberton, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
And the Final Five is back after this.